you it all. Rip all. Do that. So that's from my last class. Let's erase that. Tell me what's going on in the world today. Oh, there's something going on that's good. Because life is good. All right, let's see here. It is officially 10 o'clock. Let's see. This is policing. That's not the right class. Bing. Admit. All right, we need to see where we were at. It's going to be over here. Oops. Down low. Let's see. I think this is Maxfield. Walker. Nope. I think it's Walker. Is it? Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about this task force, comp stat, civil service, first police unions, collective bargaining, contingency theory. So we might finish that out. Okay, so let's see what we need to do today in terms of things. It's had a bit of a long weekend, so I've not actually looked at some of this stuff before getting in here for this class, because looking at other things. A little surprised that no one showed up here in person. Glad to have you though online. That's excellent. Make sure you keep up with that. I think in this class, I've got most all the videos popped into Blackboard. I might be behind on one or two. Every now and again, my time here, I'm able to download videos and upload them back into Blackboard because they're sometimes they take a fair bit of time. And they only let you upload so many a certain period of time per day kind of thing. And so with the fact that I teach so many classes, if I wait very long at all to get those in, it takes me more than a day. Sometimes I have to manage those numbers to get them in and kind of trickle them in so I don't hit that hard cap again. But let's see where we left off. Because I remember talking about those types of things. So we'll pull up the syllabi and see if we need to start reviewing for some stuff. And if that's the case, that'll be fun. Let's see up here. Nope, that's announcements right here. Boop. So we go to, chapter 4. All right, so we should be just about there. So we need to do a review today. And I need to make sure that that quiz is out there. So quiz is out there. It's quiz 1. Good. Assignment 1. Yes. Make sure you've done that. Deadline for that is also today. So we have both an assignment and a quiz due today. So make sure you do not forget that. Something I meant to mention about the quiz. Usually I let you have multiple attempts on those so we can practice a few times. Oops. This one allows you to, unlimited number of times. So make sure you take it plenty of times because you'll have a good opportunity to check out the types of things you need to know from chapters 1 through 4. All right, now let's begin a review. So let's see here what we want to do here. So I'm going to do the following. Grab because I think it's right here. Boop. So we're going to say right here, we're going to say from me to me, and I'll pull up the review real quick because that'll be in my email first. As the words releasing exam 1. Oh, I have a hard time seeing it from that distance. So I'm looking across the room. Well, I'm going, kind of give me a sit rep for what's going on today. This because it'll take me probably about 2 minutes. There's been some pretty big stuff happening in the world. Can you guys tell me what's going on? Okay, speech and citation. We'll have to do that. I'll do that too. Policing. Let's see. I'm actually just going to do it through Blackboard then. Thought I had written out nicely so I could just read it off to you guys, make it real easy for me. But it's not going to be that nice to me. That's okay. I can handle it this way. All right. So we want to this right here. Course tools, test symbols. There we go. All right. All right. If I said procedural justice, what is it? Do any of you know? Let's see if I can pull up this right here so I can see you all right here behind me. So I'm going to turn on the chat and I'm going to expect you guys to answer some stuff. If you can't, I'll just kind of give you the topics and feel free to talk because there's a few things we should probably talk about today. Let's see, chat is on so I can see you all whenever you speak now. Feel free to turn your microphones on at any point in time if you want to talk that way. So procedural justice, anytime you see that term, break it down to what it is. He's trying to get out. Head back. Okay. So procedural justice, anytime you start getting into that, you start to deal with organizational fairness, that kind of thing. There's a few different topics that go in with that. Procedural justice has to do with, well, how. It's a how thing. So anytime you see something that has to do with how, it's a good way to identify whether or not it's dealing with procedural justice. For example, in the process of how you're, whether it's conducting yourself in a normal encounter, routine traffic stop, something like that, as you're explaining the process as it's going, as it's saying, here's what's going to happen, here's what's going to happen next, here's what I'm doing now. Realize that that's going to be one of those examples where you're starting to get that across. You're trying to convey that sense of procedural justice. There you go. Transparency through processes regarding proceedings. So yes, transparency is another good way to look at it. Okay. Appointment of police officials in the United States. Let's see if I have questions asked about that. Okay, so know what kinds of positions are, how things are appointed. Basically, that's you start getting into a little bit of the organizational stuff, particularly related to the heads of positions. Oh, pardon me. So you start dealing with the police chiefs, sheriffs, those types of positions. And so we get to find out, are these types of positions elected? Are they appointed? That kind of thing. And so as you deal with that, you'll see those processes too. Context of policing, recommendations made by, what is this about? Oh, know a little bit about the presidential task force that were mentioned because there was a number of different reviews that were kind of cursorily mentioned. Some of those will come back up as we discuss other topics, particularly like the central points for what those commissions were for. But they'll have some questions there about what were the recommendations by this kind of task force? What were the findings of this commission? That kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because you should be reading. Oh, pardon me. I need to sleep more, drink more coffee. One of the two. Probably a little bit of both. Let's see here. Recommendations. Ooh. If you're looking at factors that affect the police's role in society, foremost among those, this is kind of a value statement. So I'm going to give you this one because this will be from the book. Defining feature of policing in terms of all other governmental officials, that kind of thing. Force, we can use force in that field. Others cannot. It's sort of like, can you lay hands on somebody? Yes, there you can. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. Next up, we need to do that. Okay. Know your Bill of Rights. So we have a little bit of that in here. I think that was in here. I do that across some of my classes, so I have a hard time remembering which ones I do it and which ones I don't. You should always know at least the first 10 amendments. And you don't have to know them by heart, but you have to know kind of the generalized things that they address in our field, right? So, the First Amendment is speech, religion, press, assembly, petition, and speech, assembly, press, petition. I'm forgetting one. That's horrible. I should remember that, right? That means I've lost one. So, second one is all first 10. Also, know 14, the due process one. That's going to be a very, very important one, always. Let's see. What is racial profiling? Know what that is. Know, like, if you're going to talk about that in particular, what you start dealing with is what amendment, what constitutional amendment, that kind of thing. We're talking about it a minute ago. Okay. So far, that's all I've seen related to that, but there might be more on that. Moving forward. Yeah, you know what de-escalation is? It's the opposite of escalation. You're trying to calm things down. Okay. Quotas. We have a few times we're talking about this other topic, but in one of them we're talking about in terms of quotas. So dealing with legitimacy, those types of things, authority, how those interact with the public, just the use and perceptions of quotas. One, they're unconstitutional, but do they exist? Ooh, of course they do. With that, realize of what that does for legitimacy, trust, authority, all of those things. Okay. Yeah. I do like, there's got some questions. They have some questions about role, that kind of thing. Just remember the police officer, yes, they have all those services that everyone typically thinks about in terms of, usually just say protect and serve, law enforcement, that kind of stuff. But also realize that that's an agent of social change, what that is. Some type of cultural assimilation that takes place there. So don't be surprised if some of your questions ask about, that role or that element of it being there as well. There you go, civil rights, yes. All right, we'll move in. Yeah. There's some of those statistics that they give you at the beginning of the books, like, okay, here are some facts that are kind of hard to digest, so what's the percentage of cases that are actually solved, right? Here also notes the fact that there's a difference from the way that things are actually perceived. Pardon me. And shown in policing, TV shows and movies like that. They'll show it one way. In reality, it's not all roses, that kind of thing. They don't necessarily make the movies and TV shows roses. Yeah, that's good. Never seen anyone around Tulsa have a quota. No, that's good. That means they're doing it right. You should never run into quotas anywhere. Where you'll run into them are going to be smaller areas where they're using it to fund the department itself, where it's part of its viability. That's going to be one of the most common places that you find it. The other place that you find it is where there's big enough people there that no one can be able to pay attention to it directly, so they'll do it informally. That's going to be places like your New York Police Department. You'll find people who speak to that quite directly if you look up. Stop and frisk circa 2010. I want to say it's 2010. I don't know. At some point, I'll show you a video where there's people who've been in that kind of situation recounting their details of what it's like to be repeatedly stopped and frisked, just to be harassed, that kind of thing. And without the police knowing they're doing that for that purpose. And that it's because they're doing it for political purposes, to get those numbers and to show that they're doing the work to meet the needs or goals of those who are politically elected. So it's like you got that in there. It's like what you say whenever you say you've never seen anyone do that. It's like that means you're in a great area. They're doing it right. Thank goodness for that, because Without that, none of it works at all. Sort of like that whole thing I said about protect and serve. They do it so well that we think that that's what's required of them. It isn't. That protection on it's only there in a few instances. We'll talk about that at some point. 20 times accurate, New York and Philly. Yes, cool. Thank you. I was a wild guess. I was trying to remember back to whenever I first started remember hearing those stories start to go wild. It was funny because that's the one I think I don't know if I mentioned it here, but was it 6 years? Was it 6 years later in 2016, 5 years, whatever it was, the couple presidential cycles back, both candidates. It's like they start talking about it and both of them are wrong. It's like, yeah, that's life. Yep, notice most high profile murders told us to get more media coverage and get solved. Yes, yes. Part of that's time, part of that's attention, part of that's media selling a story kind of thing. If you're in methods class, I'll show you guys something in there here in a little bit. You'll like it. Because what I'm going to start showing you guys today is how to start doing some stuff. And one of those things relates to that who gets the attention kind of thing. Let's see here. Movies and television. Know the roles and perspectives of police. I've already mentioned that before, like the crime fighting thing and all that kind of stuff. The difference between the ways that we used to view it historically, the ways that we do it now. Whether that's focusing on traditional measures and success in that way, or you're talking about the crime fighter perspective, you'll see that same kind of spirit leak through both of those kinds of things. Okay. Yep. Here it talks about systematic biases. I have trouble with that. Systematic versus systemic. I can't. Let me look at both of those words, see if there's an actual difference there. I'm sure there's probably one there. Basically, what they start talking about in some of these questions is the difference between biases, racial profiling, and that kind of stuff. Most people, what I usually say is racism. It's like, is it racism? It's a different type of racism than what most people think. It's not the same thing. Is it present? Yes. Does it cause discrimination? Yes. Can it be the exact same thing as what most people picture when they say the word racist? Yes. Is it always? No. And so be clear with that whenever you run into those terms, is that whether it's systematic, systemic, institutional, those types of things, what happens is you've now aggregated up, whether it's an organization, a specific location, or an entire institution, or an entire life. Talking about system, you're talking about an entire system. So bigger. That. No, problem-oriented policing is community-oriented policing. Okay. Why are policing tied into the public governmental structures? How do they get tied into it? Who's responsible for that? Where we find the historic roots of policing. So that covers a whole bunch of domains. That's going to go. You're going to talk about everything from England to, well, where we're at today. Community policing movement, we already talked about that. What was the purpose of the community policing movement? Know what that is. Let's see some more questions about problem-oriented policing. Herman Goldstein. What percentage of crime incidences police services calls for service are violent crimes? Not very many. Already talked about clearances are solved, defining features of police power. Already talked about community policing. Okay, we talk about that. That should do that section. Cool. Okay. Next questions. Okay. If I said August Vollmer, Vollmer, what is he famous for? What did he do? Who was he? Are you familiar with him? He's the reason why we have this discipline, but he also had a professional career too. You should be somewhat familiar with that. Let's see here. Looks like that might be chapter 2. I think it's chapter 2. they'll have a bunch of historical facts about kind of stuff. Be familiar with what those dates are. For example, if they start mentioning it's like, the first whatever, the first organization of this type came in at this date. The first female officer was hired in at this date, so and so. The first, that kind of stuff. Technology, its developments, its interface. What did it do to policing? Pennsylvania. Oh, where that? Kansas City Preventive Patrol Experiment. Be familiar with what that was in terms of specific questions. What did it find? No relationship between where patrol's at and crime itself. You have some ability to affect discovery, but not the crime generation, at least as far as they were concerned at that point in time. Okay. Decentralized policing versus centralized policing. Why do we have both? What are they? Okay. Why does police reform fail? That's always a good question. Corruption. Talk about the different eras of policing, know what they are, like the political era, that kind of stuff. Early methods, don't care. Watch system, know what that is. Professionalism, know what professionalism is. You start talking about policing. What are the hallmarks of professionalism? How can you tell that someone's being professional? That kind of stuff. All right, let's see here. All right, second page. Here we go. Ooh, I remember talking about that one in there. Okay, so there's a little bit in here about cases, it looks like. In chapter 2, I didn't talk about that. We'll talk about that. Map versus Ohio. So when we start talking about policing, some of those landmark cases that you'll run into, Map versus Ohio is when you'll run into in almost all courses that have to even get near policing. That's, of course, one of them, but even law, that kind of stuff, you have to know that stuff. Map versus Ohio is the reason why we have the exclusionary rule. So those are the rules that govern search and seizure to some degree, because they dictate what's allowed in a trial. And so if you violate procedures in certain ways, that exclusionary rule kicks it out. That's Map versus Ohio. That is the case to establish that. Okay. Communications changes, technological changes. Those are questions you might get in that section. Know that whether you're talking about the car, the telephone, those types of things, they increase physical distance between police officers and the public. They shift most of their interactions into negative because that's the only time they're interacting. And they also allow you to cover a lot greater areas a lot faster. So it's a double-edged sword. Some things are good, some things are bad. Yeah, fruit of the poisonous tree. Yeah, that's derivative evidence. Whenever we get into evidence stuff, it's very interesting how that works, because it's something that's like you have your original error and then everything that's as a result. So it's like you got this one, leads you to fact A, you shouldn't have had that, leads you to B, C, D, E, F. None of it can be used if it falls into this category. Okay. What is the purpose of CALEA? The Commission on the Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. And deal with professionalism, know what it did. Concept of, what's this? I don't remember this one. Oh, problem-oriented policing. They're just talking more about that again. Okay, National Police Crisis that began in August 2014. What are they talking about there? Procedural justice and police legitimacy there. It's gonna be Michael Brown that they're talking about. Next up, next set of questions. Okay, we're dealing with police protection, and we're actually dealing with the elements that do the protection. Well, let's just go on there. Where's my mouse? Right here. Boop, put that person back in. So you think about the nature of policing, remember the personnel and that kind of stuff. Most of them are going to be patrol officers, that kind of thing. If you look at the breakdown of people, positions, that kind of stuff. I think when we talk about organizations, I mentioned most of your money goes into people. When you look at that, most of them, it's a pyramid scheme, so most are going to be on those lower levels. That's where most of your money's going to go. If you think about that, when you start thinking about the protection responsibilities, those are going to be the officers that are going to be closest to those people who are on the ground. And so that's going to be your cities, your counties, your municipalities, that kind of stuff. Because those are the ones who are doing those type of behaviors. Let's talk about transportation of prisoners and that kind of stuff. That's a different thing. Okay. Okay. When we start talking about protection and community, we're talking about the different organizations and some of the ways that they allot police force, where they put their resources. I think I talked about some of the ways they did it. Some of the ways they do it is by looking at similar cities, they'd be like sister cities, compare. Another way that they might do it is by looking at police to population ratio for a certain amount of coverage. Usually they start doing that on multiple fronts, that kind of stuff, multiple measures. Boom, boom. The process of replacing sworn officers with non-sworn personnel. So you start talking about civilianization, know what that is, know why we do it, know what purposes it's solved, and know the drawbacks. Okay, more on decentralization. Coroners and medical examiners. Why are those not considered law enforcement sometimes? They do investigations. If you haven't seen it, medical examiners, coroners, that kind of thing. I think I mentioned it in here. I don't know if I did. It's a story about corruption. It's called Boys on the Track. It's a documentary. It's one that is political in nature, but it does highlight that there was a coroner in the, I think it was late 80s, early 90s in Arkansas, rural area, that was terrible at their job to the point at which they didn't care if they were corrupt. And so you can see where there was obvious murders that they were covering up, kind of thing. Nope, button. Okay. That question, I don't like that one. It's the largest government organization. Homeland Security Act. Know about that. Of course, it's going to talk about that. It's probably going to talk about Patriot Act, that kind of stuff too. You should always be familiar with those kinds of things. Following reasons often light hiring and law enforcement. Budgetary shortfalls. Yep. Most law enforcement in the United States are below their authority because, yeah, changeover. So organization stuff in there. Most of that's going to be common sense stuff you guys already know. Authority most campus police have at universities limited unless they're actually official police force. Let's see what else is on here. Looks like that's it. Nope, there's a couple more questions, then we'll talk about essays. Give that a second. Okay. We talked about those. Civilians, legal status of sheriff is unique. Got that. Come on. Okay, here we go. Salient features of federal law enforcement. They do not have order maintenance responsibilities because they're federal level. All that stuff's handled at lower levels, actually close to home. I don't know if I'd say lower. Roles federal agencies are specified by depends on the agency, federal statute. Some of are by Congress, but that's a different thing. Why does relying on Supreme Court defining minimum standards for police? Because those are the federal ones. Know about accreditation. We talked about CALIA a little bit, but also know the accreditation stuff. Oh. Which of the following Department of Justice agency was found guilty of spying on individual groups because of their political beliefs and for conducting illegal wiretaps? The FBI. Yeah, they do that stuff sometimes. Okay, essays. There's a few different choices here. They come up at random. So, in terms of topics, be able to discuss one of the following. And you'll have no choice to be able to discuss each of the following. First one. Problem-oriented policing. What is it? Who created it? What are its basic principles and functions? What does it do? Kind of thing. How does it work? Pretty straightforward on that one. Second potential one. What did August Vollmer contribute to American policing? Be able to tell me in detail. Third one. Private police organizations display four characteristics that differentiate them from public police. What are they? And then with that, exam will be multiple choice, approximately 45 questions, multiple choice, one essay, 10-point essay. In total of 100 points, you will have 90 minutes to complete it. And with that, I'll open it up here shortly. I'll give you at least 1 week to complete it. You shouldn't have any crunch for time. If you need anything, let me know, but try not to wait till the 11th hour. And when I mean that, I say like the 11th hour, like 11 o'clock at night, the day before it's due at midnight. Sometimes this still happens. Sometimes I still do that. So if it happens, let me know. But if you have any issues or anything like that at that point in time, what will happen is that deadline will probably pass before I can get to you, and we'll just open up back if I can take care of it that way. So if you can, get it squared away. If you can't, let me know, and we'll work on it from there. With that, you all have a great day, and I will catch you on Wednesday. All righty, short class day since we're just doing a review today. Have fun. We'll pick up with the next chapter next time.